many years ago, when I was in university, I heard about this amazing dance class that was being held in downtown Toronto. And so I went down to check it out. And it really was amazing. I mean, the people were dressed really cool, and the music was amazing, and the instructor was this gorgeous babe, and he was really engaging, and I thought, okay, I'm in. So I go and I sign up for 3 months worth of classes, and I remember thinking it was an exorbitant amount of money. At the time I was just a student, but I was really excited. So I show up for my first class. You have to understand, this is the 80s, okay? So I am wearing a full-piece spandex bodysuit, okay? And I've got like the electric blue little thingy on top, right? I got the leg warmers and the headband. My hair is like this big, right? It's like the size of a beach ball, right? And my daughter was like, ew, and I was like, no, that was looking good in the 80s, right? I was feeling really good. So I get to the class and I position myself right in the center because I want to be able to see everything. Because I've never been to a formal dance class before, but I was a 9-year-old disco queen, okay? So I thought, you know, I got some moves. I was okay with this, right? So I'm right in the center and, you know, the gorgeous instructor walks in and he puts on the music and, oh, and it's great. And he starts and the whole, you know, room starts moving and I'm moving. And I realize I have no clue what I'm doing. It was horrifying, right? So he's going this way, I'm going this way. I am a total spaz, all right? I can't figure out anything. He's going so fast, I really don't know what to do. And I'm bumping into people and bashing people in the head, and people are looking at me like, what are you doing here? And it was really 90 minutes of pure humiliation and embarrassment. And I thought to myself, I'm a complete failure and I'm never coming back again. And I left. And then I left and I thought, oh my God, I paid all that money. I gotta go back, right? So I muster up all of the courage I can to get over my embarrassment, and I go back to the next class. And I kind of like walk in, like trying not to make eye contact with anybody. And this time I position myself like way at the back of the class, right? Like practically out the door, okay? And then the instructor comes back in and the music starts again. And I realize, oh my God, it's exactly the same dance routine as the first class. So it's not that I wasn't able to follow along quickly and like everybody else. That's what I thought was happening. They knew the dance and I didn't. So once I knew that, I felt a little bit better about myself, wasn't so embarrassed. And I decided to stick with it. I decided to keep going. And after I got through my kind of, you know, stumbling about phase, I actually got more confident, I felt better, and after a few years, I actually got so good at it that the instructor started using me at the front of the class to demonstrate to everyone. And I'm really, really glad that I actually stuck with it because I loved it. And I danced in that class for 5 years, and to this day, dance brings me such joy in my life. Now, I think a lot of us forget at the beginning of anything new, when we start a new endeavor, even something that we might be really excited about, we forget that there might be this stumbling about phase. And that really is the most embarrassing phase for us, isn't it, right? You know, I don't think it's so much fear of failure as it is fear of failing in front of other people, right? Our brains are so hardwired for social connectedness. We have a very deep personal human desire to want to belong and fit in, and doing embarrassing things in front of our peers really makes our brain very, very uncomfortable. And we steer away from it. And sometimes we even stop ourselves from going after things we really want because we are so fearful about being embarrassed in that way. And so that's exactly what I was feeling at that time when I was in that dance class. That's why I wanted to quit after just my very first try. You see, what was happening was I was more focused on looking good than I was on getting good. And there's actually a scientific term for that, and it's called having a fixed mindset. And what scientists have discovered is that when we're approaching challenges, if your main focus and your main goal is looking good, then you're actually going to shy away from challenges that you have a little bit of self-doubt about. Because if you're not sure you're going to emerge on the other side looking like a rock star, you're not going to engage in it at all. So it stops you from going after things. And also, people that have a fixed mindset, they don't persevere. They'd rather give up than fear failing in front of other people. That's not going to look good. And they really don't enjoy criticism, because criticism really only makes them feel bad and not feel good about themselves. Now, what scientists also know is that if you can shift your mindset from a fixed mindset, only focusing on looking good, and instead you can focus on learning and growing, and we call this a growth mindset, that in fact the exact opposite behaviors come about. So people with the growth mindset, they love challenges, because challenges is just one more way that they can learn and grow. And they persevere through setbacks, and they love criticism, because criticism only makes them better. And what they find also is that people with the growth mindset even perform better than people with a fixed mindset. I know for me, for sure, that when I shifted my brain from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, I started going after everything that I wanted in my life. If fear of failure was the lock on the door that stopped me from going after my big, scary goals in my life, then having a growth mindset was like the key that opened the door to endless possibilities for me. But I knew that once I went through that door and I was playing a bigger game and going after those big scary goals, that I needed to learn how to embrace failure, because it can be a bumpy road and things can be difficult as you're going after these big goals that you have. And I actually learned and discovered a really simple psychological tool that actually helps you to embrace failure. And it's called practicing non-contingent self-esteem. Now, I know that sounds like kind of a fancy scientific term. And so I want to illustrate this concept with a story. So I had a very young woman in one of my workshops. And she was brand new to stand-up comedy, but she wanted to become a professional comedian. And so she would go out and she would do these gigs, and she really wasn't booking gigs because she was terrible. She was still in her stumbling about phase, right? And she would go and do her gig, and then she would feel horrible about herself, right? It's a really tough gig when you're just starting off as a stand-up comedian. And so what was she doing? Well, she was allowing her self-esteem, how she felt about herself, to be, bless you, to be contingent on whether she performed well or not. And because she was performing so poorly, she felt horrible about herself, and then she was never booking any gigs because they just made her feel bad. Now, when she got this concept about practicing non-contingent self-esteem, she started to book gig after gig after gig. And here's what she did. She separated herself out of the performance. She decided before every performance that she was going to feel good about herself no matter what. If the performance went well, she was going to feel good about herself. If the performance went poorly, she was going to feel good about herself. And that's what she did every single time. And then every gig just became an experiment for all of her content. And she would experiment with this and say, what worked, what didn't work, what jokes landed, what jokes am I going to take out of the set, et cetera, et cetera. And then every single time, she just got better and better and better. And that's what she did. She just focused on getting better every single time. And now you should see her. I mean, she's doing so well, and she's well on her way to becoming a really excellent professional comedian. Now, you see, practicing non-contingent self-esteem can actually take the sting out of every disappointing performance. So the next time you're going to try something new, stay steadfast, believe in yourself, be confident about yourself, feel good about yourself, and then just focus on getting better with every performance. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, that's, easier said than done. Thanks a lot, for that piece of advice, right?
And so let's dig a little deeper. What was my comedian friend actually doing? Well, what she was doing was she was really just saying constructive things to herself after every disappointing performance. That's really all she was doing. And scientists know that what you say to yourself after a disappointment can make or break your next performance. It's really actually very important. But what do most of us do after a big disappointment and a failure? We beat the crap out of ourselves, right? We say horrible things to ourselves. So, I remember one time I had this horrible failure. I was feeling terrible about myself, and I was saying awful things to myself. I was saying, like, oh God, you're such an idiot. How embarrassing. You're a failure. I can't believe this. No one likes you. Everyone hates you. I mean, it was terrible. It was awful. It was awful. And then luckily, I actually heard what I was saying, because a lot of the times these thoughts are just automatic, aren't they, right? But I actually stopped and heard what I was saying, and I thought, if anybody spoke to me like that, I would have kicked them to the curb years ago. So why was it okay for me to speak to myself like that? Like, who the hell did I think I was speaking to myself like that? Right? Yeah, I was like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You're out of here. Like this, and I made a decision. I made a choice that day. That woman was like gone. I kicked her to the curb, and I decided instead I would have my best, most compassionate friend following me around. And now my friend follows me around all day and says, "Damn, you look good." Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, listen, don't worry about your butt in those jeans. Big butts are back in style, all right? And this is what she says to me all day long, right? And I knew that if I wanted to take myself to a higher place and play a bigger game, that I also needed to have a very constructive self-criticizer in my best friend as well. So now, after a big disappointment, my best friend would say something like, "Okay, yeah, that didn't go very well, okay. But it's okay, it's all right, we'll recover, and let's take a look. What did go well, what didn't go well, how can we fix things for next time?" And what I do is I engage in something called deliberate practice. And that is when I can analyze what's gone wrong and fix it for the next time and actually learn and deliberately set things up next time to learn from that iteration and be able to persevere. Now, when you have somebody following you around like that, they are almost like a master coach following you around all day. And again, when you have somebody like that, you provide 24/7 a very soft cushion where you can fall when you fall. And when you have a soft cushion when you fall, guess what? You bounce back fast. You don't spend a lot of time on the ground mulling around about your disappointment. You think about it quickly, learn, and you get right back up and you persevere to the finish line. And persevering is where it's at. If you take a look at any of the success literature, you will find that it is not IQ and it is not talent that is the best predictor of success. It is actually perseverance and grit. So those positive, constructive things that you can say to yourself after a disappointment will fuel that positive energy you need to get back up and keep persevering to the finish line. Now, I do a lot of work with corporations, and a lot of them are starting to say to me this thing, fail fast and fail often, right? You've heard this, right? I sort of chuckle too when I hear it. And, I really don't think corporations want people to be going out and failing all the time and, failing often. I think really what corporations are saying is they're saying, we want innovation. And we know if people do not fear failure, that they're going to speak up in meetings. They're going to give us their ideas sooner than later. They're going to challenge the status quo. They're going to put their products out there quicker. They're going to be curious and explore. And all of these behaviors actually fuel innovation. And we know when companies are more innovative that this can give them a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So I think it's not failure that is really important. It's this idea that we can embrace failure, that we can feel comfortable with failure so that we can persevere to greater levels of success. So the next time you are stopping yourself from going after your big, scary goal, remember 3 things. Remember to keep your focus off of looking good and instead focusing on learning and growing after every experience. And secondly, to feel good after every try and just focus on getting better the next time. And finally, decide today, who are you going to have following you around? Is it going to be your worst enemy, or is it going to be your best, most compassionate, constructive best friend? And I promise you, if you focus on those 3 things, you will transform failure into rocket fuel for your success. And your life will be everything you want it to be. So go for it. Thank you.